Hey guys, so today we have the Cheshire cat-inspired makeup look for the Wonderland series, and as you can probably tell, it's mostly inspired by the classic Disney version, but I did want to incorporate some of the colors as well as the cat eyes from the Burton films. And a huge shout out and thanks to Samhain Contact Lenses for the amazing cat eyes. As always, all their info will be down in the description box, as well as products to use, the camera, music, all that jazz, so be sure to check that out below, and let's get into the tutorial. For the gray stripes, I'm using Nye's Clown White along with a gray and black eyeshadow, and I'm using the Clown White on just like a disposable face paint sponge because this stuff is really dang stubborn to get out of either a beauty blender, which is usually what I use it with, or a brush. So I just opted to go with a disposable sponge, that way I don't have to worry about cleaning it later. Call it lazy, call it smart, but it's gonna save you a lot of time and frustration in the end, so that's what we're going with today. So I am just swiping that across to actually create the stripe, and then once I have the basic shape down, I'm going in and stippling over it to give it more of an even layer. And I'm creating pretty thick curved stripes, but you can play around with those two aspects to find what you like best. I'm also creating a few stripes down my arms, and that top one there I am aligning it up with my chest, as you can see, and then those ones I do want to set right away so that they're not super transferring while I'm doing the rest. You can always use water activated paints as well if that's what you prefer, and that will also give you a quicker cleanup at the end. And then here I'm just using a baby wipe to kind of clean up all of my edges. Then once we're all good to go, I'm going back in with my translucent powder and just setting everything and wiping away the excess. For the pink stripes, I'm using the Fuchsia Flash Color from Makeup Forever, and I'm using a flat foundation brush from NYX and pretty much just filling in all the rest of the stripes. Again, this is a cream product, so if you prefer, you can use a water activated paint that won't need to be set in the end. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and set these as I go along just to be positive that I'm not going to get any of the pink onto the white. And then if you do use the water activated paints instead, as long as they're dry, they shouldn't transfer onto each other. Then once we're done with all the stripes, minus the right arm, since that one is going to be going back and forth a lot, I wanted to leave that one until the end just to make sure that it didn't get messed up. But now I'm just going in with kind of a medium gray eyeshadow and blending that over top of the white stripes. And keep in mind here that I didn't have a gray cream makeup or body paint, so that's why I opted for the white. But if you do have a gray, or you want to try and mix one from a black and a white paint, you can always go in with that first, and then as you can see here, I'm going in with the black on the outside of the stripes and blending that in. Then I'm just brushing away any fallout and moving to the Suva Beauty Cupcakes and Monsters palette, and I started out with the purple shade from that palette, which kind of ended up being a little bit too light, so we're saving that for later. But for now I decided to use Ultraviolet from NYX, which is just a darker purple, and I'm applying that to the outer parts of the pink stripes like we did for the black, and then just blending it in. And I'm also going to be applying this purple over top of the black shadow, so the purple is going over all of the stripes. I'm then going in with a white eyeshadow and applying that to the center of all the stripes for a highlight, and again just blending that outward. Then once I'm finished with that, I'm going to finish my right arm, and we'll be right back to add some final details to the stripes. So moving back to that Suva palette and that purple shade that we were going to use before, and I am just lightly applying that kind of where the black ends on the white stripes, and then I'm just again blending that in. Then I'm also using that kind of light teal shade from the same palette, and I'm mainly applying that to the center of the white stripes and blending out. You can apply these so they're more vibrant, but I just kind of wanted a light wash of color. Then once we're done with that, we are all done with the stripes. And don't forget to brush away any fallout. Moving on to the face, I'm going to do my outline before I put my lenses in, and I'm going to be using the top of the cat's smile to try and camouflage my nose so that I can put the cat nose up a bit higher closer to my eyes. And I did do a face chart for this look, which was really helpful, and I do recommend doing a face chart or any kind of design drawn out on paper first so that you can kind of have an idea of where your illusion is going to hit on which part of your face or body. So I'm using a NYX micro brow pencil for this, And I'm starting with the mouth outline because that is the main central feature for this look, so I wanted to make sure I had that right before I moved on to any of the other features. This is really easily modifiable, so if you mess up, you can just easily wipe it away and start again. So you can see here that I'm using my own features to my advantage the best that I can, and I'm creating the bottom of the teeth coming out from the corners of my mouth. That way my top lip is really easily hidden, and then the top of the cat's mouth is curving up onto the tip of my nose, so I can try to camouflage that. And then since our noses stick out from our face, we're going to have to compensate for that and draw the sides of the cat's nose out longer, which was probably one of the trickiest parts of this look for me. And it's just one of those things that, depending on how flat your nose is or how tall and skinny it is, you'll just have to play around with it and see what looks best with your face shape. You'll see me go in and modify this shape a lot, even toward the end. So if you feel like it doesn't look quite right, don't worry about it. You can always play around with it and change it. Then once I'm feeling okay with the nose, I'm moving on to the hair that he has on the top of his head, and I'm creating a very shallow V at the very center of my forehead. And then once I have that base done, I'm going in and adding the ears, which again, I'm creating a little bit of a curved V coming from the center of the forehead, taking that all the way up as far as I can toward the hairline, and then bringing it down to create the other side of the ears. Then just continuing to outline the hair on the forehead. I'm also going to create the sides of the face, and I'm starting just above my brow and then moving down onto the temple toward the cheekbone, and I'm going to fill in my ear and the outside of this line with black. So I'm just curving it down to meet the jawline. And if you didn't do a face chart or design, I would always recommend to have a reference photo of your character nearby, so that way you have a little bit of an idea of what you want to put on your face. And then I decided to extend the lines of the ears down so that I could have a guide for how far out I want the hair to go. Since I'm only going to have the ears sitting above the hair, I don't want to have a bunch of blank space if I bring that hair in too far, if that makes sense. And then I'm also adding another line to the outside of the ears so that I can add the bright pink. And then the last thing that we need to outline is the actual cheek shape. So I'm curving the lines out from the cat nose and then curving them underneath the eyes, and up and around, down the cheeks, and down onto the chin. So here we have our finished outline. You can always go in and modify it later if need be. It may seem complicated, but it does help in the long run. Now I've popped in my sclera lenses and we are ready to go. So I'm starting out with an eyeshadow primer and just applying that all over the lids as well as underneath the eyes. And I decided to switch to a brush to blend it along the lower lash line just because that's a little bit more gentle, especially when you're wearing the scleras. Moving back to that Suva palette, I'm using the hot pink shade, which is really washed out in this lighting, but I promise it is a really bright pink. And I'm applying that all over the lids, kind of blending that up into and above the crease slightly, and then I am also applying that underneath the eyes. Going back in with the fuchsia flash color that we used for the stripes, I am starting to outline the hair on the forehead along the inside of our outlines. I'm going to start blending this inward and then also along the inside outlines of the sides of the head as well as the cheeks. And I'm just going to use my finger to kind of stipple and blend that out. And then I wanted to kind of see the shapes that I had going on, so I went in with my black body paint and filled in outside of all of our outlines. And I'm only filling in about halfway back onto my ears since I am going to be wearing a black cap. It's going to cover my hairline and the back of my ears. I'm also filling in the lower portion of the mouth. And after I completed this look and I was looking at the photos, I felt like I could have fit a little bit of the bottom teeth in there and it would have looked a little bit better, so feel free to do that as well. Now I'm going in with the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in the shade Milk, and I'm pretty much just filling in all of the blank areas that I have except for the teeth. And then along the jawline, I'm going to try and blend that down onto that first gray stripe that I have. And I decided to use this eye pencil because it blended really well into the pink cream and it also gave a nice finish. Then once I have all of that applied, I'm going in and blending everything out so I have a nice even layer of white and I have nice soft edges between the white and pink. I'm not sure why I waited to fill in that cheek area, but go ahead and fill that in with the Milk pencil as well. Then when you get down to the jawline, just make sure to blend that out into the gray as best as you can. And then when you're blending out into the pink, you'll want to wipe your brush off periodically just so your white doesn't get too pink. Then I'm just filling in the little outer strips on the ears using that fuchsia flash color. For the inner part of the ears, I'm using that same color along with the Milk pencil, and I'm just applying them on top of each other and then blending them together to create a light pink. Next, as we did with the white stripes, we're going to apply that gray eyeshadow over top of the white. Again, try and blend that gray down into that top stripe as best as you can. Since this eye pencil works really well as an eyeshadow base, the eyeshadows should blend really well over top. Now here I am filling in that cheek area with the Milk pencil, and then once I've applied it, I'm going back in with that same brush and blending it out. And this time I've added a little bit of that fuchsia flash color to the brush just because I do want this mouth area to be a little more on the pink side. However, I'm only adding the pink to the brush at the beginning and then blending from the outside in. That way the inside is more white as a highlight. And then once everything is blended out, I'm going in with more pink around the edges, again blending it inward. Then if you need to or you want to add more of a highlight to the center of the face, you can go back in with that Milk pencil, and then we're going to blend that out and top it off with a white eyeshadow. Now we're going back into that Suva palette using both the purple and the pink, and we're going to blend those over top of that fuchsia cream, both to help set it and to give it more of a purpley hue and brighten the color. If you want to darken the edges even more, you can go in with that darker purple that we used on the stripes and just blend that around the outside edges. Then I'm setting that cream on the inside of the ears with the white eyeshadow. And don't forget to gently brush away any excess. For the nose, I'm using another jumbo eye pencil, and the shade name will be down below. I'm not positive, but it might be Cashmere. It's a shimmery kind of beige color, and I am topping that with a tan eyeshadow. Then I'm filling in the teeth using a white water-activated body paint. And I was going to fill in each tooth separately, but then decided to do two sections, leaving that line down the center so I could still have that guide. For the brows, I'm creating a thicker, more rounded shape, and I'm using a black gel liner. I'm first just brushing through my brows, and then I start defining the bottom part of the brow out to the tail, and then I will start filling in the inner part, giving it a pointed little corner at the bottom and a more rounded shape at the top. Then I'm going back to that purple from the Suva palette and I'm applying that to the outer corner, blending that about 1/3 of the way into the lid as well as up into the crease. And I'm going to do the same thing at the inner corners, blending about 1/3 of the way in and also up into the crease, avoiding that center part of the lid. I'm blending this along the outer part of the lower lash line as well as into the contours of the nose. Then we're adding a little bit more pink to the center, making sure everything's blended out, and then we're going back in with that light teal shade and applying that to the contours of the nose at the very top underneath the brows. And I'm just applying a couple layers until I have the desired opacity, and then I'm also going to take a little bit of this underneath the eyes and blend it down toward the cheek portion. Then with a separated fan brush, you could also use a really separated duo fiber brush, or you could even use just a fine detail brush. I'm going to use a black and white body paint to start creating some fur texture. And I'm focusing this at the center of the forehead between the brows as well as that very center part of the ears. And then I'm also adding some of this to the stripes, and I'm just using plain black for now, and using light flicking motions or pressing harder for darker lines. Now we're starting with the outlines, and again I'm just using black body paint for this on a fine detail brush, and as you can see I totally messed up that line right there, but it's easily fixed by wiping away and adding more pink. And I'll be honest here, it was probably about 5 or 5:30 a.m. by the time I got to these outlines, so I didn't give as much focus to them as I would have liked to, but I was just kind of trying to hurry so I could go to sleep. So that's what happens when you start filming after midnight, people. I need to fix this. Anyway, life goes on and we just are continuing to outline, and I've also used this detail brush to add some darker hairlines to the inner parts of the ears, and we're also going to do the same for the center part of the forehead. Then we're just continuing to outline, moving on to the nose. And after I did this outline, I felt like it needed to be a little bit bigger still. So again, you can continue to modify as needed even now. And then I'm also adding that little line at the bottom of the nose. So this is the shape that we ended up with, and I'm going to go in later and fix the inner part. For now, I'm just going to keep on outlining, and I am doing that center line, and then we're going to outline the teeth and the smile. So I'm just lining the teeth straight down, and then at the bottom, I'm going to just round the corners out just a little bit. And don't mind my one crazy eye, apparently I did not notice until now. And these are weighted lenses, so assuming that they do fit to your eyes, they should pretty much stay in place unless you rub them or something. My right eye was just struggling apparently. So now that the mouth is outlined, I'm going to add some shading using the black coming in from the corners of the smile, and then we're going to connect the mouth lines up to the nose. And this is where we're going to start camouflaging the nostrils. So we want the lines to go up kind of almost to the top of the nostrils so the lines won't be extremely visible. And I forgot to do this, but you'll also want to put a little bit of black inside your nose so that it's not skin colored. I've shaded a little bit onto the tip of my nose, and now I'm going in with some black eyeshadow, and then I'm also adding some shading underneath the nostrils of the cat nose and inside of the extended smile lines. Now I'm going in to fix the inside of the nose, so I'm going back in with that beige eye pencil followed by the tan eyeshadow, and then I also decided to top it with some of the gray and the pink eyeshadows as well. Then once I've done that, I'm going back in and redefining my outline. I'm also adding a little bit of black shading underneath the very bottom of that hair on our forehead, as well as to the inner part of the ears above the hair in that area, just so it appears a little bit more dimensional. Then we're adding some highlight to the center of the nose as well as to those outer corners. Then I'm just blending that out and adding some shading to the very top center of the nose as well as to those outer corners. Now we're just going to finish up the outlining around the cheek area. Now we're adding some more of those first strokes using that separated fan brush, and again we're starting out with the solid black, and then as we go along I'm going to just continually dip that into white so that we'll kind of have a black to gray to white, and we'll have varying shades in there. And I'm adding this along the jawline and under the chin as well as to those stripes like we did earlier. And then I'm also going to add some strokes in there using a metallic teal liquid liner, and I'm just flicking this back and forth to add a little bit of color among the black and white. I'm adding this and the white to the center of the forehead as well. I'm adding a little bit more highlight to the nose using that white paint, and then I'm going to add some more of that teal to the center of the forehead. I'm applying that teal to the top half of the outside of the ears as well. Again, with the black paint, I'm adding 3 simple whiskers and 3 dots to each side, very similar to the cartoon. Next up, I am just curling my lashes and then aligning my waterline, both top and bottom, with a black eyeliner. After I apply it on the bottom, I'm taking a little bit of black eyeshadow and smudging it along the lash line just to smoke it out a bit. And then of course we had to create a cat eye, so I went back to that black gel liner and I'm creating a really long, kind of thin wing. And then I'm going to line all the way across the lash line, making sure to really blend that into the lashes so we don't have any flesh color showing. And then I'm also taking that down at the inner corner to the nose and kind of blending that out into the black eyeshadow along the bottom. For some extra staying power around the mouth, I'm adding Jeffree Star's Weirdo, and then I'm just applying a couple coats of black mascara to top and bottom lashes, and no fancy costuming or backdrops or anything, just a black cap, which is actually a cut up piece of black legging. So I just put that on my head and we are good to go. So if you made it this far, I know it was a long one, but thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and don't forget to catch up on the rest of the Wonderland series if you haven't seen it yet, and I will see you in the next one.